We're on. Well, good morning everyone and welcome to our Community Standing Committee meeting. And welcome to our live streaming audience this morning for our Standing Committee meetings that'll go till lunchtime. Normally Councillor Brimblecombe would be chairing this meeting today, however, as we do from time to time, he's at a disaster management conference in Mackay this week. And I've assumed the chair of this committee for today. Councillors, the agenda asks for those present, so we have an apology for Councillor Brimblecombe. Is someone having to move that? So we've recorded that. Thank you, Councillor Godwin-Smith, seconded Councillor Nixon. All in favour? Against? Thank you. Any leaves of absence required for the next meeting? All good, councillors? Thank you. Well, we have the previous minutes of the previous minutes of the 11th of April. So we had an action update there from Sheriff on the work of the CHRC at Fernley's Camping Wood Reserve there. That was a very informative agenda item. Showed some really great results there with that spraying campaign, the sword there, and the community greens program, which I think gave away 22 successful applications totaling $80,000, which was outstanding. So obviously our community getting the benefit of that. So someone happy to move those minutes? Moved by Councillor Godwin-Smith, second Councillor Daniels. All in favour? Yes. Thank you. Any business arising in those couple of items? I think there was a bit of a discussion there about ongoing pest management. I think that we're going to be following through on, given that there are some issues at the moment with Hymen acne around the place, and there seems to be, as Sheriff indicated on that day, a little bit of, I suppose, toing and froing between Biosecurity Queensland and others about responsibility of certainly the riverine situation there. So obviously that's something we need to follow up on. So that pest management area is certainly getting some attention. Then was any update on that? Just
well, through you, Mr. Mayor, our ranges are currently speaking with the state government around that responsibilities and where they lie. So we'll have some more information in the coming weeks about how that's finalising itself.
Thank you, Dan. Right, councillors, review of any outstanding meeting actions. Nothing there. Right, any material personal interest, conflicts of interest, personal gifts and benefits? Those are clear. Going to go back this morning. No petitions, Mr. CEO? No. All right, the next report is the RADF for round 3 minutes.
And before you get Daniel to take you through those minutes, Mr. Mayor, I'll just point out that there's been 2 decisions made in that committee meeting, and what is before us today are those minutes so that we can endorse those recommendations. In the past, we've created an extra layer of bureaucracy, I suppose, by writing a report to the committee. But it makes good sense from a governance perspective for you to see these minutes in their entirety and the 2 decisions highlighted in bold. So you'd be endorsing those recommendations or those decisions, and then that would give them legitimacy to go forward, which is no different to what we've done in the past. It's just a cleaner process, and plus it keeps this committee more connected with what's happening with that Regional Arts Development Fund Committee because of the other information that you normally probably wouldn't see in those minutes. So it's a little bit more transparency and a reduction in bureaucracy with that introduction.
Well, look, thank you, Mr. Chair. That's a clarification there. You wouldn't have seen a report that preceded actually the minutes. which is, as the CEO has referred to there, is that streamlined effect, and certainly good working environment for that committee. So I'll hand over to Gentleman as Committee Daniel. You might go through that. Thank you, Daniel.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you, and thank you, Scott, for clarifying that procedural adjustment here. So as you can see, councillors, the Central Highlands Arts and Cultural Advisory Committee minutes are before you. So they met on Friday the 3rd of March. A number of items were discussed at that meeting, but importantly for us, the two RADF applications which are there involved. The first one, the Vested Brass application for the Central Highlands Battle of the Bands. So the committee approved that to come to council at a cost of $3,000, and the Blackwater Art Society, so the Mark Kumbay workshop, again the committee there approved that for a spend of $1,073 for those applications. So the committee were asking for you to support those applications through the CHACAC group, which advised is the appropriate way to respond to that. But if there are any questions from councillors,
Councillors, in relation to those two, as you said, Vested Brass application, which I think has been an event that's been held here before, very successful, and obviously, given the high quality of the bands that come through our regional extension programs, obviously that's a benefit to them. There's not a lot of forums that they get the opportunity of getting together, so that's obviously a good one. And obviously the Arts Society there. So it's, Daniel says, any questions about those?
Mark Coombe workshop should be a very good one.
Yeah.
Just a status update too on the budget, councillors. If you support those two RADF grants, there'll be a remaining total of about $11,823 for the 16-17 period, and our Arts and Cultural Officer, Karen Newman, is putting the bid for 17-18 as well. So I'm not too sure what the bid is, around 40,000 or something.
I think it's been possibly 30, but
Might be around about $30,000 for 17-18.
Right, happy with those? Well, to recognise that, as you say, streamlining of that process, I mean, if we adopt these now, so the resolution will be that the minutes of the Regional Arts Development Fund Round 3 be endorsed, and by endorsing them, you'll be supporting those decisions. So I'm happy to move those. Moved by Councillor Godwin Smith, seconded. Councillor Bell. All in favour? Against? Thank you. So, councillors, any general business that might have snuck into the Communities Committee this morning?
Just Volunteers Week, just probably some recognition to those people that work in our communities as volunteers. We probably should recognise all those groups and organisations that raise lots of money to help council and our communities in lots of areas. So I think that's appropriate that we mention that.
So it's from the 8th to the 14th of May, 2017, National Volunteer Week. And traditionally we've, the Mayor's usually issued a press release that reaches all those organisations, including the emergency services, volunteer organisations and other important organisations in the social fabric of the region, just to recognise the good work that they continue to do. So there's probably opportunity to do more than that, but I just see on the Volunteering Australia website, there's ideas for events and different sorts of things that you can do at this late notice.
Well, we did it.
Well, Councillor Godwin Smith was that, sorry, you were in Springfield yesterday.
Yeah, and as was Councillor Nixon, and Councillor Nixon was being recognised yesterday with the Ivy Anderson ladies for the fantastic work they do as volunteers in the local community, raising funds for the Ivy Anderson Committee, their aged care facility down there. But the event yesterday was organised by the Springshore volunteer group at the Woolshed. Obviously, they're a little tourist information centre there, and people travel from Duringa and Emerald and in between to be recognised for services they provide to community through the volunteering they do with the information centres and the great roles they play as ambassadors for our region in welcoming tourists and visitors into these centres and sharing a little bit of their life and story and local history and whatever else. But it was just a great way of volunteering, of recognising those volunteers for all the hours that they give. Because as Peter rightly said yesterday, without volunteers like that, we can't open the doors on facilities like that. So, so that was just one event that was held.
So I think we signed, 77 certificates of appreciation for those people yesterday, and it's just obviously through circumstances we were not always able to get there, but it was certainly great last year. I'm really pleased it was really successful yesterday, so I appreciate very much.
Through you, Mr Mayor, we did attend the event at Scrimshaw today and did some videoing with some of the volunteers that were going to put up our site, and we'll also get the Boston on Friday doing the same thing.
Right, thanks Andrew, that's right. All right, well that's, as Councillor Nixon says, and rightfully so, I mean obviously through a lot of our, certainly through the delivery of our visitor information centres, we really do rely quite heavily on our communities to support that, and notably, certainly last year, is that certainly a lot of our elders in our community are using that in their spare time that they have, which is great because they have a great history that they're living. It obviously adds to the experiences of lots of tourists coming through our region who have been actually taking the country in our numbers. So thank you, Councillor Nixon, for bringing that up. Any others general business?
Mr Mayor, if I can indulge the committee for a moment while we're talking about recognition, I'd like to acknowledge a number of events that have occurred recently and some community staff that have played a pretty big role. So these events have all happened and been turned around with a rather short time frame. One of them being the Mayoral Student Leaders Summit, which a number of the councils were at. Another one was the Park Run launch, which happened last weekend, and then Council Race Day as well. So they're all turned around with some complexities and some problems, all resolved by our staff. So I just want to acknowledge the Community Development team and the Mayoral Summit, the Parks and Rec team and the Park Run launch, and our planners who worked with also Mary Ryan from our governance team there to get the Council Race Day up and running in pretty short turnaround time. So.
Thank you, Dan. And obviously those councillors attended those events. They were some outstanding events, and certainly all that were involved was certainly to be commended for that. And also the Students' Day obviously has been well captured, and I think that was from the perspective of the youth strategy. I think communities officers really felt that there's a connection there that can really help with that and give them some really clarity moving forward. As I say, those the park run has been something that's been synchronised for a while, and obviously that's something that's going to be built on, and hopefully through our Works for Queensland project and getting people in the park. That run is something that's really interesting part of our Botanic Gardens, and certainly in other places in the Central Highlands. And I can assure you that the co-sponsors of our race day are very, very keen to continue that as an annual event and significantly add to, I suppose, the opportunity for a community race day. So well done to all those communities team, and certainly to others like Mary Ryan that contributed to that day. So,
and just on the park running, Mr Mayor, they were successful through Council's Community Grants Program and received $5,000, which was really the kickstarter for that initiative. So that's just another level of council supports great events like that. It's a good example of a well-funded community concept, and I'm sure it'll be around as well.
Sorry, Councillor Dan, would you say?
A lot of what I was going to say has already been acknowledged, so I did just want to mention around that park run because it has been a great initiative. They've been getting great numbers. There was 92 at the launch event and 70 at the last weekend's event, and the people have come from southeast Queensland, the Isaac region, as well as across the Central Highlands. So it has really been a great community event. So I'm grateful the council has been able to support it.
Thank you, Councillor Daniels. And as you say, there's obviously that opportunity being the initial run, and I'm sure will only get bigger. And obviously that location you've chosen is really good, and certainly right across the Central Highlands. There's some good opportunities there. So. All right. No other further business, councillors?
Well, just in regards to the agenda, Mr Chair, I don't understand why there's such a light agenda this meeting now, to two of these meetings in a row. When there's so much stuff that's still unfinished in regards to the community advisory groups, what's happening with the reshaping, reorganisation within that group area there, the work that's being done in regards to our recreational plan. Why aren't we seeing that? Why aren't we discussing some of those issues in regards to governance in those areas? I just think that the stuff that's been given to us today is pathetic, very minimalistic, and not acceptable. So I think there is, why do we have to have almost an uprising in regards to a level playing field issue that's governed by this governance committee, when it should be dealt with here? There's all those issues that are out there and about in the organisation that require the governance of these councillors that are elected by the community to oversight. We're not seeing it. And I just think there's got to be a review, otherwise I think there'll be a rebellion. Either or.
Yeah, I think through the chair, you make a good point, Councillor Bell. One of the challenges we've got is that there's a backlog of reports to be written. There's a schedule of reports that need to come before council. One of the minor improvements that we need to make, and we will make, is to put an index in the front of every agenda that has a calendar for when the future reports are coming, to at least give you an indication, but that doesn't change the immediate problem of the backlog. So we need to get on top of that. If we're on top of that, there'd be more body or volume to these committee reports. But the other point you make around level playing field, I might ask the chair's happy for Daniel to provide an update, but I think it's supposed to be coming back to the next committee or council meeting. Council meetings, right, if okay.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So the level playing field working group met 2 weeks ago. We had a workshop there. All councillors were invited to attend that. And from that, there was another meeting which occurred yesterday to confirm the terms of reference for an ongoing advisory committee. That terms of reference along with the report will come to the next full council in 2 weeks' time for endorsement. And the advisory committee will begin after that to deal with the backlog of essentially what is leasing issues or tenure issues across our organisations and facilities, and then again to develop a plan moving forward for how our service delivery is equitable across the region. So for all of that, again, in an advisory capacity to inform full council decision.
I still think
If you're asking for more than that.
well, there's not only that one, but I'm just saying that process in itself leads to me some questions in regards to what doesn't come here first, then go to the second. I mean, why do you have a communities committee? It's not going to have that role of some oversight, some sieving, viewing, and discussing those issues that are communities based. That should come here first, then they go to general council meeting. So all I'm saying is that when we look at today's agenda, and we're just ticking off what a committee's done. It's not much of an agenda, and it's certainly not the holding, I think, of asking councillors to sit around the table to discuss those issues when there are so many more outstanding community issues. Whether it's in regards to what's in the budget this year for the common community section, what parks and gardens and infrastructure is being invested in, why are those decisions being made, how have they been come to a decision that you have identified those as being the major issues. What is the way in which those pieces of infrastructure have been identified as the most important. There's been a whole heap of range of investment being requested through the recent state government announcement for small projects. Where's the pathways upgrades up? Where's this at? Where's that? And all that investment at? We're not seeing any of that. And all I'm saying is that we're also then expected to go to our community and tell them this is where council's at with all that stuff, and all those things that are happening. We don't know, just not seeing it. All we're seeing is there's no report from yourself, really, Daniel, in regards as the executive officer here, and what the heck your organisation's doing, where's planning at. What I just think that these committees need to have that sort of advice, not just procedural stuff that needs to be done. To allow council to carry out its responsibilities and its audit trail as today. So all I'm saying is it needs to be a fair old think about the way in which this committee is getting information, what is the information we're getting, and the depth of the information we're getting. And also I just think this from the executives committee, which the executive directors point of view, we should be having an overall report from yourself as well.
Just to unpack it, Mr Mayor, if you don't mind too, there are updates that are provided to councillors through the councillor portal, and if you like, I mean, there could be an opportunity for that to be packaged into an information report and channeled through the respective standing committees, as opposed to going through the information via the portal. So there's an opportunity there, and then that would provide, I suppose, updates on all those operational areas that communities as a department touches. Take the point regarding an overarching departmental head report. We can certainly look at that. A question I'd ask the committee through the mayor is, are you also interested then in looking at the community planning advisory group and maybe dissolving it and having it report directly to the communities committee as a demonstration of what you're wanting to achieve?
Yeah. Oh. Yeah. So there's all that stuff to have a look at, and it's things like, you know, discussion about, let's do some forward planning in regards to shovel-ready projects and what's the next ones in communities with either state and federal elections. I mean, I think there's a state election probably going to happen this year. So what are we ready with in regards to submissions?
Yep.
We're not talking about those things. We're not putting them on the table, and you know, therefore they're not flowing around, you know, in people's heads. What you know, what's being fed through from the community to us in regards to, you know, some identified priorities. So yeah, it's just that, as I said, I think at the moment, you know, it's very mundane, very pedestrian the way in which the community's being given information and being asked to deal with it.
Well, I think that's, I suppose, this is reviewed, and the council's happy with it. I mean, that's the sort of stuff you want to see for the committee.
And really, the things of what Councillor Bill has touched on apply to all committees, So, yeah, I mean, leadership and governance is next, and
It's
a
not
very
all right.
large agenda as well, so.
No, and I suppose the way it's evolved too since the last election is we created the standing committees. In the standing orders, there's a list of the types of things that would be dealt with at a standing committee, but they're replications of the general meeting process, which deals with the more heavy-duty policy and higher-level issues. And I think that's where there's been a disconnect. That there's been times when there's been too much on a committee agenda, and other times there's no justification to have the committee meeting. But in order I think we're at a point where for committees to succeed, we have to do what you've described. Otherwise, it's at a point where you can almost go back to a more robust general meeting. And I think the committees haven't had enough of a chance to succeed at this point. So I think those changes are definitely the way to go. I can certainly accommodate that quite quickly. We can channel the information that goes via the portal into a tasteful report. And if you're looking at 20 odd information updates, you might only want to talk about one or two, but at least they're there and they're going through the committee. And we can make some proposals too around the CPAG, the Community Planning Advisory Group, and if you do want to continue it or have it rolled up into this organisation, into this standing committee. You'll also note that at the post-election meeting after the election, we did make a decision collectively to try and streamline processes, and that resulted in some smaller groups being not done away with, but I suppose it negated the need for them to continue to exist, because the idea was that the types of business that they generated would come through this committee, and that hasn't worked. It's worked successfully in some areas, but not successfully in others. There's an opportunity to get that right, I guess. If those community organisations that have been disbanded know that there's a conduit to council through this committee, I think that could make this committee that much more relevant and still negate the need for them to reform. I know that some of them have reformed, but not all of them.
Well, look, as a general review, though, I mean, this is, it's just over 12 months, I mean, we're fundamentally still saying that, I mean, the soundness of the standing committees is still what we want to do, to keep that structure, and obviously work on, like Councillor Bell's saying, bring more stuff in and have it actually active through the standing committees. Is that what we want to continue to do? That the preference?
Yes, I'm happy with that.
Okay, right, okay.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, there's certainly no shortage of information we can bring forward. I think the challenge is the balance between what council want to see and how much detail they want to be involved in some of that, that information. So that'll be a bit of a balancing act as we move forward. Happy to take your considerations on all of that.
Just give us some and we'll sort it through, don't we?
That's right. We'll tell you if it's too much or too little.
Well, if it's segregated through the mayor into information and decision, at least you can deal with your decisions and you've got all the information there. And if you choose to talk about a few of those items, you can.
Yes, that's right.
Well, it's just, I'm just mindful of, I'm happy to do the review, but I'm mindful of the fact as well that 6 months ago we were in the dark, still rolling through stuff out of committees that were stacked with information. And now we're sitting here, and they're all wound back to 40 minutes. Well, I suppose, I'm looking for some consistency. That's all people want to work with, and that's what encourages people to provide stuff for agendas. So, if the clear direction's there, we'll get the clear direction there. But if like today, we had an hour and a half meeting, we start running into each other and we wanted to get them streamlined so that we actually dealt with them. We just need to get that balance right, or we'll go back and have another crack at it and make sure it's interesting.
I think we can accommodate that, Mr. Mayor. If we put the time limits, and this was a former request to council, to put an estimated time frame on each agenda item for a decision, then the chair can organise the meeting the way they see fit. And if it does look like we've got just a little bit over, well, then there's a sense of urgency about getting through the business. Otherwise, if there's a little bit of wriggle room, that enables a bit more discussion around some of those information items. So I think I'm picking up on the message very loud and clear. Let's have a good look at it for the next round of committee meetings and see if we can get it right.
Let's do that.
Yes.
Right, any other general business? All good. Well, councillors, there being no further business, I'll declare the meeting closed at 10:58 AM. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Terry.
Thank you.